Act 3, Scene 1. Summary. In Bangor, Wales, Hotspur and Worcester confer with Glendower, their host, and Mortimer. Young Percy and the Welsh leader, after exchanging compliments, engage in a personal dispute and are interrupted by Mortimer. A map is produced, whereupon the rebel leaders proceed to divide England into 3 parts, the north going to the Percys, the west to Glendower, and the south to Mortimer. It is Mortimer who explains the immediate action to be taken. He will set forth with Hotspur and Worcester to meet Northumberland and the Scottish forces at Shrewsbury. Glendower, who will need time to muster his forces, will join them later. Hotspur expresses his dissatisfaction with the division, insisting that the course of the River Trent be changed so as to enlarge his share. Glendower protests, but the two reach an accord. Mortimer's wife is desolate because her husband must leave her. The couple tries to communicate, although neither speaks the other's language. She then sings a Welsh song to the accompaniment of music invoked by Glendower's magic. Hotspur promptly urges his wife to join him in an amorous interlude, and they exchange witty remarks devoid of sentimentality. In short order, however, Hotspur puts an end to this interlude. He will sign the Articles of Partition and depart for Shrewsbury within 2 hours. Analysis. This is the division scene. In terms of political doctrine, it is especially important. Conceivably, some members of Shakespeare's audiences, like many today, had their doubts about the titular hero of this play, Henry IV, recalling not only the illegal manner in which he came to the throne, but also finding him too much the politician, too calculating. For them, Falstaff's comic rationalizations of his own actions to some extent parody those of the king. But few, if any, Englishmen would have tolerated even the thought of division of their country. Their sympathies inevitably would have been on the side of the crown. Therefore, however valid any complaint by the Percys may have been, their present action, in which they are joined by Mortimer and Glendower, cannot be justified. In opposing them, the king and his son will emerge as saviors of England. Fortunately, the heavily doctrinal elements here and elsewhere in the play are rendered sufficiently palatable, thanks largely to superior character portrayal. Not only does Hotspur continue to attract, especially because one sees him in contrast to Prince Hal, but others, including Glendower and Mortimer, interest reader and audience alike. Glendower, it may be noted, is anything but the wild, barbaric figure of the prose histories. And, of course, the scene includes a delightful romantic interlude with music. Appropriately, it is the character of Hotspur that receives greatest attention in this scene, and his very first speech is revealing. One may question the ultimate worth of a leader who, even momentarily, cannot recall whether he has forgotten or mislaid the important map. This would suggest that he is hardly the one for planning an action, however capable he may be in other areas. Most serious is young Percy's absolute inability to restrain himself, or to tolerate what he considers to be conceit and superstition in Glendower, his host and ally and a man of genuine military greatness. Well along in this scene, Worcester lectures his headstrong nephew, and his words are weighty with import. "In faith, my lord, you are too wilful blame. And since your coming hither have done enough to put him quite beside his patience. You must needs learn, lord, to amend this fault. Though sometimes it show greatness, courage, blood, and that's the dearest grace it renders you, yet oftentimes it doth present harsh rage, defect of manners, want of government, pride, haughtiness, opinion, and disdain, the least of which haunting a nobleman lasseth men's hearts and leaves behind a stain upon the beauty of all parts besides, beguiling them of commendation." Lasseth men's hearts. One recalls that, in the previous scene, Prince Hal had been winning men's hearts. This is not to say that Hotspur loses one's sympathy in this scene. Quite the contrary. There is graciousness and good-heartedness in his reply to his uncle, "Well, I am schooled. Good manners be your speed." The reader enjoys his satiric thrusts, well illustrated by his reply to Glendower, who claims the ability to call spirits from the vasty deep. "Why, so can I, or so can any man. But will they come when you do call for them?" Young Percy is no less amusing, but just as tactless and intolerant, when he comments on lovely English ditties and Welsh airs and what he calls mincing poetry. These cultivated subjects have no place in the life of the Hotspur of the North. Although at one point Lady Percy says that her husband is governed by humours, it is really the single humour insisted upon by Prince Hal in the previous scene which rules him. Compared to either Mortimer or Glendower, whose cultural as well as military accomplishments receive attention, Hotspur is a personable barbarian. It may be added that, although Glendower probably would have had serious difficulty in calling up devils from the vasty deep, Shakespeare does give some evidence of his supernatural powers, for it is Glendower who magically provides the music for the Welsh love song. But, admittedly, The dramatist introduces this rather casually. Perhaps, like Hotspur, we are not much impressed. Something more can be said to the credit of Hotspur. As in Act 2, Scene 3, his relation with the lovely Lady Kate, who affectionately calls him a giddy goose, is delightful. Hotspur's bluffness, his boyish attractiveness comes through strongly. Moreover, gallantry and fair-mindedness remain prominent in his character. When Glendower agrees that the Trent must be turned, Hotspur replies, "I do not care. I'll give thrice so much land to any well-deserving friend." Act 3, Scene 2. Summary. At the palace in London, Prince Hal appears before his father, who dismisses members of his court so that he can speak alone to his son. He passionately censures the heir apparent for inordinate and low desires and for indulging in such barren pleasures in the company of such rude individuals, ignoring his status and obligations as a prince. The king seems to believe that Hal's dereliction may be evidence of God's punishment for some displeasing service he has done. Hal does not claim to be blameless, but he states that busybodies and scandalmongers have exaggerated accounts of his behavior. The king voices his deep concern at considerable length. Hal has absented himself from councils of state, letting his younger brother take his place. If the king himself had chosen, as Hal has done, to cheapen himself in vulgar company, he never would have won the allegiance of Englishmen. He especially sees in his son the same fatal weaknesses which led to Richard II's downfall. At that time, the king himself was like young Percy, who, no older than Prince Hal, commands ancient lords and reverend bishops into battle and has won never-dying honor by capturing the renowned Douglas. To Henry IV it seems that Hal is his greatest enemy, not the northern rebels and Mortimer. Chagrined by this strong reproof, Prince Hal urges his father not to believe those who have led the king to misjudge him. He solemnly promises to redeem all this on Percy's head, that is, he will prove his loyalty and worth by performing glorious deeds in opposition to the valiant Hotspur. Overjoyed, the king declares that Hal will be placed in command of royal forces. The king himself, joined by Westmoreland and Prince John, will lead another army which will join Hal's in the north. Sir Walter Blunt arrives with the news that Douglas and the English rebels even now have assembled their troops at Shrewsbury. Analysis. In this scene, the climax and turning point are reached. Because of Hal's vow and his appointment as supreme commander of one large force, the way is prepared also for the shift in the comic subplot. The thematic relationship between main plot and subplot is sufficiently clear, for the reader has come directly from the scene in which this meeting between prince and king has been parodied. To some, King Henry may appear especially calculating in parts of this scene. Why, for example, should he say to his son, "I know not whether God will have it so, for some displeasing service I have done, that, in his secret doom, out of my blood he'll breed revengement and a scourge for me"? Perhaps, it is argued, he is not sure that Hal's apparent failure is a sign of God's displeasure, but he is well aware of the displeasing service he himself had done, usurpation and regicide. Moreover, his second and much longer speech is practical instruction on how to influence people, the right people, what with his remarks on dressing himself in such humility that did pluck allegiance from men's hearts. The point of view represented here is surely not to be ignored, but it may do Henry IV less than justice. In the first place, it is primarily Henry IV, upholder of law and order, not Henry the Sinner, who appears here and in the rest of the play, quite logically, since increasing attention has been paid and will be paid to the rebels. He is the man who, unlike his unfortunate predecessor, is gifted with the arts of kingship. If indeed, according to 16th-century political philosophy, the ruler was God's lieutenant on earth, responsible ultimately only to God, he nevertheless must pluck allegiance from men's hearts, which means that he must win their respect and hold it if his reign is to be successful. After all, God helps them that help themselves. The many contemporary discussions of kingship made all this abundantly clear. The king and father has heard only scandalous reports about his son's behavior. His concern about the succession to the throne is deep and proper. It was a dominant concern of Shakespeare's generation in an England ruled by the Virgin Queen. Most emphatically now, Prince Hal is pitted against Hotspur. Earlier young Percy had been praised by the king as the theme of honor's tongue, II.81. Now he is Mars in swaddling clothes, a youth no older than Hal who leads high-ranking subjects and who defeated the great Douglas. At the end of Act 1, Scene 2, Hal promised to redeem his tarnished reputation, but he spoke in soliloquy, voicing his secret thoughts, as it were. Now he makes his pledge directly to his king and father. This is not the casual, debonair Prince Hal of the Boar's Head Tavern speaking. His father's words have penetrated deeply. The very simplicity of his first line underscores his sincerity and determination. Do not think so, you shall not find it so. He takes his oath in the name of God. Most readers share the king's elation. 100,000 rebels die in this.